Alright, follow along with me and see how we can create this photorealistic looking candle render in Nomad. So I'm starting with a locked off front plane here and using the lathe tool to draw a rough guided shape of the candle. I'm just maneuvering all the little points here and clicking on them, dragging them between each other to merge them. If you click on one and it changes it to black, it makes it a linear, and the others are Bezier curves to create this. So I'm just going in here and creating the desired look. It's a lot of finicky movements here. You want it to flow nicely and look smooth at the same time as having the straight definitions down the edge. It's quite good practice to move them around, play around. It's nice that you have the ability to do this, that we're not always locked into the same drawing that we started with. So I'm pretty happy with this shape. I'm just moving this one over to the middle now. And if you go up to the top now, we're going to select the whole function, come out of the locked front view and have a look from the top. As you can see that we have created a hole at the bottom, and dragging this blue circle at the bottom of your base allows you to open and close the size and width of the hole. I'm having a little bit of trouble here working out why this isn't closing the hole properly. What I've worked out is you have to drag the middle point lower down than you would expect it to be. It can't be completely straight, otherwise the hole has a clipping issue. I'm just going to fast forward this while I've worked this out. Although this isn't physically correct, it fixes the problem. So once we've got that done, we can make sure we've got the right width for the hole, and when you're happy, go on up and hit validate. Just check your mesh. There's a little bit of distortion at the bottom of mine, but you're never going to see it, so I'm just going to leave that as it is and head on up to the mesh options. In multi-resolution, we want to subdivide this a couple of times. Nice, looking very smooth now, perfect. So next thing we want to do is start creating a new layer. We want to add in a primitive cylinder object, and let's drag this down and inwards to fill up the inside of the candle, and this is going to be our wax. So it doesn't have to be perfect at the bottom. I am putting it as close as it can be, but you're really not going to see it down there anyway, so don't be too fussy. Get the width just about right, and I think that's pretty good. So I'm just going to save this here. I'm going to name my project candle. Hit OK. Great, and then back into the layers, we want to rename these just to keep it a little bit tidy. So I'm going to name the lathe base, if it lets me. Let's try again. Nice, and the cylinder I'm going to name wax. Having a bit of issue with that. Okay. Great, and now we want to duplicate this wax 2 more times, since we're going to be using 2 cylinders and it's in roughly the right place now. So I'm going to come down to the second one, and then we're going to grab it with the gizmo, move it up, scale it down by dragging in that orange looking circle around the whole edge of the gizmo. That scales it down uniformly, and now I'm scaling it up on the y-axis, which is pulling up the green dot, just to make it a bit taller. And I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm now just coming in with the move and brush tools just to make this not so uniform, since a wick is not a hard cylinder. So just roughly change it a bit, smooth it out again, add a bit more, smooth it again, just so it's just not perfect. Okay, I think that looks nice. Now selecting the wax object, and I'm going to validate it and do the same thing here. I'm going to brush roughly around the wick itself and then smooth it right out again. I am going to subdivide this a couple of times just to make it a bit smoother. Smoothing some more. Generally when you buy a new candle it's quite flat there. I just wanted a bit of definition where the viscosity of the wax would have started to rise up the candle. So I'm smoothing it out a lot more, adding more on the brush tool and smoothing it again. This is totally optional, I just think it adds more realism. So I'm just going to go in and name this last one lid on the cylinder. So with the gizmo I'm dragging it up and scaling it down again on the y-axis. I'm going to unhide it and then I'm going to start to resize this. It doesn't really have to be as accurate here because I actually end up taking the lid off at the end. So if you're going to keep yours on top, then spend a bit more time here. I spent a bit too much time because I didn't need it on top. So here's a tip for getting better UV unwrapping results. If you've tried UV unwrapping on this software before, you've probably found out that actually it doesn't do a great job yet. So you need to help it on its way a little bit. So what I'm doing here is I'm going in with the split tool now and I'm separating the top face of the lid and the bottom face of the lid. And I'm trying to make these as small as possible just so that the sides have more cleaner edge too. You will have all three of the split pieces. I'm selecting them all and I'm going up to join. Now I realise I didn't show this, so I've popped up on the side of the screen here. What you need to do to be able to do this is on the folder option where you press and save, you need to go into your advanced settings and make sure topology is ticked on, and that allows you to, once you've split and joined them, you can separate them in the future. So now we've got that sorted out, let's go ahead and try to unwrap this. So if we go over to the miscellaneous and hit unwrap, that was super fast and you can see how clean this UV unwrap is. We've got the two perfect circles for the lids, top and bottom, and the side edge. So I'm now selecting the base and we're going to start texturing. So I'm going in here with a rough blackish material. We don't want it perfectly black, and I just want enough reflection that is diffused, so I think that looks quite nice. Yep, I'm happy with that, and I'm going to turn the lid off and we're going to move on to the wax now. So select the wax, and this one we want slightly rough, but I think it would be better off with a bit more of a yellow. Yeah, I think it's like an off-white with a bit of yellow tinge, enough roughness that it bounces light, and I think that's good. So we hit paint all, and I'm now going to start turning on the post-processing. Holding down with my two left hand fingers and dragging with the right to move the environment around now, until I find a nicely lit. I like the side light here, this is nice. I'm adding in a sunlight now by hitting add light and moving it across. I'm changing it to a spotlight. I'm just changing the properties of it here and moving around. I think this is quite nice because it puts a highlight on the wax and it really shows off that roughness of it. Almost gives it a subsurface kind of scattered look. And I'm going to rename the wax here to wax. Renaming the other one to wick, just so we're tidy and we know what each layer is. And adding the lid back in too. So it's time to start texturing this lid. So if we go up into the material options, I'm going to import a color material of this wood. Already this looks perfect. I do need to subdivide this though. I'm just going to turn that light off and have a look. Put another light on with, actually have this as a sun. And I'm just going to rotate and play around with this light now just to see where I can find a nice looking part where it hits the candle nicely. quite like having that little bit of reflection there on the right, so I'm going to just pull that in a bit more. Yeah, that looks good. Fantastic. So let's select the lid again, and we now need to subdivide this because the edges are quite rough. Subdivide it a few times, and we're going to now work on the texturing of the base. So I actually tried UV unwrapping here before decimating it, and it pretty much crashed. Wasn't doing anything, so I end up cancelling this. So I'm going to fast forward this now and try again. So now that's cancelled, operation aborted. I'm going to hide everything else. With the base, I'm going to do similar to what I did with the lid. So I'm coming to the front view here, and I'm going to split the bottom off. About there's nice. And split the top off. Go up into my layers, see I've got these 3 pieces, join them by clicking join at the top of the layer panel. So I decimated it now to reduce the triangle poly count, and let's try UV unwrapping now. It's still quite a slow process, but it does work, so I'm going to fast forward this and come back when it's done. As you can see now, the UV unwrapping is quite nice, it's pretty much there. So we've got the top part has nice UV, so we'll be able to add a bit of roughness here. So I'm going to go into the texture channel, and under roughness I'm going to import a photo of this kind of splattered dirty map, and I'm going to play around with the roughness levels here. You can see we're getting those mixtures of highlights and shadows of the reflection here, and I'm going to get that down till we can just about see it, but not that it's so prominent. And I'm going to scale this up now to tile the texture to make it a lot smaller. See how much that's added in realism, just by that little bit of roughness. And I think we're pretty much there, you know. I'm quite happy with how this looks. So yeah, as I said earlier, I'm going to take the lid off because all that work we did on the candle and the wick's not going to be there, is it? So I've subdivided the base here. I've got depth of field on. So copy my settings in this post-process panel, and I've got chromatic aberration on, and I think this is looking great. I'm now going to move the lid off, and once we line that up roughly so that it's laying next to it or standing next to it, I think we can call that job done for today, guys. So well done for making it this far. I'd love to see what candles you created, maybe use different textures or different lights. So tag me in your creations if you've put them on Instagram. My Instagram is @more_mogsy. And yeah, I'm looking forward to doing a new tutorial on Nomad. It's great software. Crazy that you can just sit there and zone out with this on your iPad. I love it. This is my first tutorial, so they are going to get better once I've had a bit of practice with using the software, but I think we're pretty much there. I will be breaking down tutorials into separate parts, how to set up a really nice photorealistic post-processing setting, and how to texture objects properly. But for now, this was just a quick look into this, so hope to see you in the next tutorial. That's more Mogsy.